Oh my god. I didn't even see there. This is going to be an exclusive tour of a one-of-a-kind facility where Britain's lost and marginalised creatures are given expert care and attention to be looked after, bred and released back to the British landscape. Keep It Wild, based at Rewilding Coombs Head, is an immensely important project here in Britain. It's not only where you'll find glowworms, lynx, beavers, storks, water voles and countless other species, it's also a place where the landscape is turning back to nature.
So we've got about 100 odd ponds right the way through the farm now. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out how this works. You know, actually, there comes a time in life where you have to do things that are right.
It's spearheaded by the awesome Derek Gow, someone I've looked up to since getting into rewilding. It was a pleasure to meet him and his dedicated team. Even on a cold, windy winter's day, it was evident that nature was bouncing back here, and there was a clear buzz for a busy year ahead, bringing back Britain's beloved banished beasts. Okay, enough of that, and let's look at our first species.
Hello.
At Keep It Wild, they become tremendously efficient at breeding these little bundles of energy. Not these guys, but these water voles. They may seem small, but they're playing a big role in restoring Britain's systems. Through digging burrows and munching on vegetation, this helps create diverse habitat for other wildlife. But fundamentally, they're a key prey species. They rapidly reproduce and make a perfect meal for many animals above them in the food chain.
Probably about 800 voles in here at the minute. And we're just generally cleaning them out, feeding them every day, and then yeah, they'll get sorted out and then paired and go outside. Do you mind it being in a Pringles tube?
Pringles tube's fine. As long as it's not in my hand, because last time I was close to a water vole, I was.
Jesus. That's brutal. That is proper blood.
Do you make your own cages, pens? Yeah.
Yeah, we have someone pretty much full time on repairing and rebuilding and replacing.
Primarily habitat loss and then predation from the non-native American mink push water voles in Britain to near extinction. But as mink are now being controlled and more areas are being given back to nature, a few thousand of these little guys each year are returning to Britain. Leave Curious member Robbie Bennett wanted to know where some of the species end up, and water voles have now been reintroduced to a number of locations across England, just like at the Trentham estate. Glowworms. Yes, at Keep It Wild they breed and release glowworms. Despite their name, they are in fact beetles, and it's the females which produce a bioluminescent glow. It's this glow which has captivated humans for thousands of years, but sadly, this is a little critter which has declined massively due to intensive agriculture, the general tardiness and light pollution across the UK landscape. They require rough, messy edges where there's an abundance of baby slugs and snails. Keep It Wild have now perfected breeding them, and over this year they're looking to continue to scale up. Also breeding in the insect room are mole crickets, and I had no idea just how huge they are.
They go underground and create these chambers which are about the size of a tennis ball, and they sort of smooth it out, and they create their own echo chamber, and it's, you know, to attract the females. So
amazing. Being big and juicy, they are a fantastic meal, although I don't think I'd fancy it. A properly awesome but now extinct insect that Keep It Wild are working to bring back. They thrive in messy wetland environments, aka beaver habitat. And actually, now would be a great time to talk about how they're working with this industrious creature.
There is nothing, we cannot engineer like this. You know, if you've ever tried to like hold water back using only sticks and clay.
How do they do it?
They are just the masters of it, and it really is mastery.
It's the speed in which they do it as well, right?
Yeah, they just work all night, you know, they are relentless.
Sleep all day though.
Sleep all
Derek has actually played a significant role in bringing back the beaver to Britain, sourcing them from Europe, establishing breeding programs and preparing them for release. As well as taking action, Derek has been a huge advocate for beavers, writing a book, giving talks, and generally not shutting up about the importance of this creature for Britain's restoration. It's relentless people like Derek and his team who defy the odds and actually get this kind of work done. So I'd personally like to say thank you, not just for bringing back the beaver, but for everything else. Since filming this video, the English government approved the wild release of beavers, so Keep It Wild are going to be very busy. So please head to the description of the video to find out how you can support all of their work. So there's some beavers in here. And why do you keep beavers in this park?
Well, this is just our translocation barn. So beavers, in conjunction with the Beaver Trust, there's perhaps beavers that are coming into conflict in Scotland, you know, perhaps with farmers, and they need to be moved. And so if they're coming down to this part of the country to go into licensed enclosures, then sometimes it takes time to catch the whole family. So we have to hold them until we've got everybody, and then everyone can move on together.
These are your beaver cages. Pretty robust. Up next, we have another much loved and sadly much maligned creature, wildcats. Over the last year, 15 kittens were successfully born here. They're raised in these custom-built cages and prepared for release. Leah wanted to know where the wildcats come from and how they're selected for breeding.
We have 61 of them now. They're easy animals to breed. So what you do is you just create, you captive breed the kittens, and then you have the kittens for release year on year.
So it started from private collection zoos?
Oh, yeah, private collection zoos. There's an official stud book for them in Scotland, so they've tested animals for purity. That's where your animals would come from to begin the whole project.
It's one of those species that you just think, why aren't we just getting them out? Like, if they
because we're an incredibly conservative, silly little island where the simplest things that could be done aren't be done because of our bureaucracies and politics and insularity. Yeah, we should just be doing it. It's dead simple.
Yeah, it's like that with many species, I feel, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the same people and the same forces govern them.
If you want to get your questions answered in videos, then check out the membership over on Patreon. This really is the best way to not only be involved behind the scenes with Leave Curious, but also support the channel's mission of telling these important stories of nature restoration to as many people as possible. If this sounds like something you'd like to be part of, you can become a member by following the link in the comments or the description of the video. It's pretty cool for me. I don't recall ever seeing one. Maybe I was a kid. They're about as big as I thought they'd be. Oh my god. I didn't even see there. So they say that lynx are elusive, and as I approached the pen I was looking over at the one here and I didn't even see this one right in front of me. Not that you're that well hidden, but such a gorgeous animal. It must be said that the lynx here are not bred for release. Instead, these animals have been given a better and safer home. They've been bred in captivity and are domesticated and used to humans. They'd struggle to survive if they were released to the wild, much like the captive bred lynx which we recently saw dumped in the Scottish Highlands. An important step to getting the lynx back is to educate, and these two animals help do that here for the various groups which come and visit. So there's actually a few other animals part of the project which aren't bred for release, including native cattle, pig and pony breeds, and even water buffalo. Oh, they're huge, aren't they?
Right, if we want to get a really good close look at them, if we get the puppy and dangle it from the platform. Come. Yeah. Come on, Jim, do you want to be dangled? Come on. So well, they came from a buffalo farm in Staffordshire, and but I mean they're originally an Asiatic species or a Eurasian species. At one point in time there were water buffalo right up to the Channel coast, but that species of water buffalo became extinct at the end of the last ice age, and they're no longer here. But we can't keep, I mean the whole idea of the buffalo being here was that we used them to create ponds and mires that they filled full of dung, so they were rich living environments for crake chicks. And you know, honestly they don't really do it. They pretty much graze like cattle, though they are much more inclined to browse. So they will, if you let them into woodland, they'll knock trees down, strip the branches from their upper lengths. And then in summer, I mean they can make wallows, but mostly they use the ponds we've made.
At Coombs Head, these megafauna live a life free of pesticides and are able to roam through a land which is now in recovery. And when at the right densities, it's these large herbivores which play a crucial role in maintaining and restoring the land.
They produce their own weight in shit in a year, so we'll have soils that are full of invertebrates, and results these lovely curly coats are used by small mammals and birds as nesting material.
Is that tasty? Say if a farmer really wanted to graze their sheep,
No fucking sheep.
Not here.
Not ever again. They are something designed by Satan to ruin the earth. So no sheep.
All across the farm, the team have dug over 100 ponds. Getting water back into these well-drained, sterile monocultures is key to bringing back life.
And I'm real pleased to, the whole point of doing it is you come round and you got a result, and all it's going to do is get better and better over time. More amphibians, more plants, more invertebrates, more food, more wagtails, grey wagtails, pied wagtails, more birds. Hopefully the wheat ears might stay and breed in the log piles we have here this year. We'll see. Every year the response from nature gets better. There's some meadow.
What's going on here? Have you resculpted this land?
Yeah, no, that's just the clay excavation for the ponds. But every single time we open a clay bag, we try to make it south facing. Because if you make it south facing, then you get a lot of solitary bees, solitary wasps, all sorts of other insects come into it because it's open, sunny and hot, and they start to burrow into it, and then you get the predators coming as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of things you can do if you just think it through. There are simple things that make life possible for other creatures.
Because what do you need to do this? Excavator?
Yeah, next we are our own digger.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do all of this again and again and again.
So one of our members, Anton, he asked, what are some of the scalable ideas for what the average person can do on their properties or in their local areas to help rewild wildlife?
Dig a pond, leave things untidy, make log piles, make rock piles. If you put things like that in your pond, and it doesn't need to be a massive pond, but things like branches, overhanging clear water mean that kingfishers can actually see the fish and the amphibians beneath them and dive down to get them. Plant a lot of aquatic plants, so you get lots of pollen. So these dry, sticky things coming outside are purple loosestrife. If you put seeding plants in, like the teasels provide food for goldfinches, and before you know where you are, actually what we should do is start feeding the birds here as well. Big bird feeders are.
And am I right in thinking that you have a nursery for these plants too?
We have a nursery for plants as well, so we're growing a lot of the big sedges, because the big sedges, if you're trying to change things, everything is about structure, okay? So you can change the structure by reseeding grasslands with wildflowers, you can plant trees, you can make rock piles, you can make log piles. These things are all difficult because we never have a lot of material. We don't have big forests here that we can extract a lot of material from. But if you start to plant things like this plant, which is coming away well now, this is greater tussock sedge. So that's a plant that's 2 years old. By the time that's 10, it'll be standing at this height, trying to pull its roots out of the anaerobic soil, and there'll be harvest mice in there, wood mice in there, maybe bog ants in there, nesting wrens. So that single plant in its own right, you can see how it's about 1 metre in circumference now. It comes up and up and up, and in the end it can be hundreds of years old, and that's used by a whole host of different things. So everything that changes structure is something you can create. And some plants as well, so things like the juncus here, this pinrush, we haven't planted that, that's come away of its own accord as soon as we stopped grazing it, but you can see how you've gone from a completely flat barren paddock to something that all of a sudden is starting to give itself structure again.
Now, we weren't able to get close as we didn't want to freak them out, but they were also breeding turtle doves. Since agriculture intensified, this species has declined by more than 99% in Britain. Herbicide use kill all of the seed-bearing plants that this species relies on. They migrate to and from Africa, and on this route, thousands get shot.
One of the things we need to do when we look at the scale of nature loss is we need to be very innovative in our approaches. Now, the official line with these birds is that Natural England and the RSPB don't want people to be breeding and releasing them. They want to be concentrating on persuading people in the flyways that they shouldn't be shooting them and trying to get the habitat right for them in Africa and. But all these things take time, and these birds will never be here again in the southwest. I think there's maybe 2 pairs in the South Hams and that's it. So it's over by the time you get to that. They'll never be here again in the southwest unless we try things like this. I mean, do we know what's going to happen? No, of course we don't know what's going to happen. We haven't a clue what's going to happen.
You've got to do it though, you've got to try it.
It may be a complete failure, maybe a complete waste of time, but unless you've given it time and you've tried perhaps for 5 or 6 years and nothing's worked and you've adapted to whatever circumstances you understand, then you're never going to know where you are.
It's experimenting, isn't it? You've got to
experimenting. When I started with water voles, we were told right at the beginning of the water vole stuff that that this was never going to work. There were mink everywhere, they were all going to die, and we made a lot of mistakes. We killed a lot of animals, but now we know exactly how to reintroduce this species at scale. We know what you need, how you do it, how tough the animal is. We've learned so many lessons about the biology of this animal that in the beginning you just have to look at it and think, that's it, we give it a try, and even if it's another spin of life's roulette wheel, that's the way it goes.
That's the way you do it. I appreciate that approach. Another awesome bird that Keep It Wild are working to bring back are storks. These impressive large birds were driven to extinction here through persecution and habitat destruction. They build giant nests, typically atop of buildings and old oak trees. The breeding of this species here has helped to already establish wild colonies over at Knepp, which I was actually able to see on my visit. They're also working to bring back black storks. Currently, Keep It Wild have 3 breeding pairs and they're working on producing more chicks. Unlike white storks, black storks prefer a life of solitude, typically away from human settlements. Another really impressive big bird that we just need more of in Britain. Now, we really could keep on going and going. Keep It Wild are working with black grouse, twites, redback shrikes and adders, and likely they're pursuing many other species too. But what I think is really important is to understand why Britain needs a place like this. Why is this kind of work so vital? To answer these questions, I sat down with Derek in what's called the Bone Room, a fitting location for Derek to paint a picture of the state of nature in the UK today and how we've arrived at this point.
We've ended up where we are because, I mean, we want everything. We're a creature, we're a species that's never content with having a bit. We're a species that wants it all. And that's a human characteristic. I mean, if you look at the arguments for every development project there is, be it Donald Trump's proposed a restructuring of the Gaza Strip to create Elysium on the Mediterranean with jobs for all and progress and everything else, you always hear these same old things rolled out again and again. So if you look at the development of the opening of the American West and the destruction of the bison, the big railroad companies will tell you it's progress, it's dollars, it's jobs, it's herds of cattle, it's mining, it's access to forest resources, it's whatever it is, and it's all absolutely required for economic reasons, and we must grow. Rachel Reeves, I'm quite sure if she could travel back in time, would like to meet some of the great railway barons, because she would think pretty much in line with the way they thought. And what that means is that this way of doing becomes a cultural human thing, and well, not for every culture, but certainly for the Western European cultures, and we just destroy. And we just keep on destroying. So what happens in Britain is, of course, you end up, when people are here first, you end up with, I don't know, something like 5,000 hunter-gatherers perhaps, when the channel closes over and they're isolated for a time, though people never are, because of course you can make the journeys in boats. And what they do is they hunt to exhaustion the big animals, because the big animals are the ones that have a lot of sinew and meat and fur and horn, and you want them very much. So you make a great effort to understand their habitats very well, and for difficult things like moose, you just hunt them again and again and again until one day you get it. And then they pass, and with them pass the functions they create. So a whole lot of little creatures that are relying on them, for things like the beaver. Once the beavers have gone, there's no wetlands. No nature has no ability to create wetlands on its own other than geology, which enable things that are dependent on water and open sunny landscapes to prosper. So things like water voles decline, the mole crickets go, the butterflies of the great fenlands go, a lot of the birds go, the fish go, you name it. That whole guild of life starts to irreparably fall away when you take the guiding light of nature's boiler and you just snuff it out. Nothing else functions. Some of these things may be there, but they're precarious survivors. And then we create different landscapes. We chop the forest down, we create common lands, open lands, wastes, and for a time other species adapt to this. So, your barn owls become familiar creatures, that's why they're called barn owls. Your harvest mice become familiar creatures because they're familiar, people encounter them commonly when they're mowing the corn slowly with horses. great bustards come from Central Europe, and while we have taiga type landscapes, they survive and prosper here. So you have a different guild of wildlife that forms. But right the way through that process, anything that conflicts with us, and if you want an example, you look at the wolf, which hung on long after the Enclosure Acts, and nearly into very modern times. Well, as soon as one's sighted and comes from the north and turns up in Warwickshire, then everybody's out to kill it. And of course, these people understand the landscapes they live in intimately, and these things are not long before they're done to death. And of course, you can only do that for so long before something just is so exhausted that it's the end. And then you have, all sorts of other things like, the industrialists that move out of the cities that are emerging on the basis of their great wealth decide that they want to be hunters too, but they don't want to be hunters of wild boar. They want to be hunters of pheasants and partridge and grouse. So anything that's it's got a hooked beak or fangs, however small and insignificant it is, it has to die. So they employ people called gamekeepers who are told they have to exterminate everything that's going to impinge on his lordship's fishing or shooting interests, and off they go out into the landscape with tiny traps to cut the legs off kingfishers and dippers, because they eat fish fry and expunge all the other raptorial species. And then farming improves to the stage where you can use the chemical companies that were set up in the First World War and the Second World War to start to fight a war with nature. So you can spray your orchards with all sorts of toxic compounds to kill the aphids that predate on your fruit. But at the same time you do that, you extinguish all the songbirds as well. And over the last 70 years, these compounds just become, okay, some like DDT are banned, but you just find different toxins of different sorts, and you apply them to the toxins that have already been applied, to the point where we as the end consumer, are pissing glyphosate in our urine and feeding our children, filling them full of glyphosate through the breast milk of their mothers. I mean, none of these things are trialled or sustainable solutions, and everybody will tell you it's safe, but in all truth, we don't know whether it's safe or not. We live in a landscape where the eels don't know whether to migrate upstream or downstream because they're full of cocaine. Yet every single thing that we do as this mass of polluting creatures has a huge and profound effect on the other life forms that can live alongside us. And that's what's got us to where we are. And there isn't enough space. Do people care? Well, I mean, the memberships of the nature conservation charities would suggest that yes, they do. But what you still have are tiny minority groups of incredibly selfish and bigoted organisations determined to foster their influence on the landscape by turning out 70 odd million game birds to fill them full of toxic lead that then kills hundreds of thousands of other creatures. It's a homemade hell, and it's all down to us. Should we tell some jokes now?
So if you're inspired as much as I am by this work, then please do head to the description where you can support everything that's going on at Rewilding Coomshead. On the screen now is the Leave Curious membership, which is how you can get involved and support the channel yourself. If you want to keep watching the channel, then check out the video there too. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Leave Curious.